Recently, there's been a lot of discussion in the Call of Duty Zombies community about what Call of Duty Zombies Easter eggs should be like. Because of course, after Cold War, I think that's when the discussion really started rising because we saw a big difference between what Easter eggs used to be like in Black Ops 3 and 4 compared to what they are now. They went from being mostly very complex, very hidden things that took some time to figure out, and a lot of people probably just weren't going to do them in the first place because they didn't want to spend the time to learn the Easter eggs. That doesn't go for every single Easter egg, but a lot of them within Black Ops 3, Black Ops 4, Infinite Warfare, all those games that came out around that time period. And then you move into Cold War, and they went ahead and made the Easter eggs very simplistic, basically easy for anyone to do. Some of the steps are still stuff that you might want to look a step up the first time you do it because you might not be able to figure out on your own right away, but you could figure it out after just trying a little bit in the game, looking around a little bit. You'll probably figure the Easter eggs out on your own. But to me, the extreme difference between what we had in Black Ops 3 and 4 over to Cold War, I think was a little too extreme. And I've made this point a lot in my videos and on Twitter and such, that I think there's definitely a middle ground you can find between Easter eggs, and I personally would prefer Easter eggs like Black Ops 3 and 4. If we had to choose between one or the other, I'd prefer those over what we have in Cold War. But the more I've thought about it, I think it's honestly pretty obvious what they should do. A lot of people have brought up the idea of the Final Reichs Easter egg, how there was a casual and a hardcore version of that Easter egg. But the thing about that is those were two separate Easter egg quests. I mean, well, there was one main one, and then the one version was a little bit shorter. And I guess that, could be a little bit problematic for the developers to create because now they have to make two whole different Easter egg quests that could just take up more time, and I don't know if they really want to do that. It also isn't the same experience, so maybe they wanted everyone to have the same story experience, and maybe it would be a little bit too weird to have some players have only, this story experience, whereas the other players have another story experience because they were a little bit different with that. So I can understand that, but I think I have a pretty good solution here as to what can make Easter eggs in future Call of Duty Zombies games very replayable and appeal to pretty much everyone. The people who want the really hard Easter eggs, the people who want the really complex Easter eggs, but also the people who want the more simplistic or the more easy Easter eggs. And of course, these are different things. Simplistic is not the same as easy, and difficult or hard is not the same as complex. Like, these are different things. You could have a very complex but still easy Easter egg, and you can have a very simplistic but still hard Easter egg. Those aren't the same exact thing. But in general, what I'm trying to say is some people want different types of Easter eggs. We all do. So how do you appeal to everyone? So I'm going to go over some solutions, and then I'm going to go over the one that I think is the best solution of these solutions. And then we'll talk about other things related to Easter egg design and what I think they should do to design these Easter eggs in the best possible way to make them the most fun, the most replayable for the most amount of people. I'm not just thinking about myself here. I know that's the easiest thing to do because I know myself the best, but I'm going to try to think about everyone so it makes sense for something that they should do rather than just something I want them to do. So the first solution they can do, which I don't really think is that good of a solution, but it still is a solution, is to just kind of make different maps in the game have different levels of difficulty. So a couple of the maps are really easy in their Easter eggs. Some of them are really, simplistic, whatever, but have a couple of the other ones a little bit harder. Kind of like what Infinite Warfare did. I mean, Spaceland and Rave in the Redwoods are infinitely easier than Shall and Shovel, Attack the Reactive Thing, and even Beast from Beyond. Like, those first two Easter eggs are way easier than the last three. So that is definitely, something they did there. And even some of the other Call of Duty games, I guess Black Ops 4, I think Ancient Evil is pretty easy in comparison to like, Togger Toten or Blood of the Dead or something like that. I think Voyage of Despair is definitely the hardest there. And then I feel like, something like Alpha Omega is not nearly as hard. So that kind of did that too. They try to here and there, but at the same time, none of them are like that simplistic. But the issue I have with this is at that point, you're just splitting up the community because now you're going to have a bunch of people who hate certain maps in the game and only like other ones. And then the other people are going to only like certain maps and not like the other ones. And you're just splitting up the community between all sorts of groups here. You want people to like as many maps in the game as possible. And that is the best case scenario, is that everyone's going to like every map. That's obviously never going to happen, but we're trying to go for the best case scenario here. And obviously the solution does not go for that because there's going to be certain people who are going to hate certain maps based on them not liking the Easter egg. Of course, the Easter egg is not the entirety of the map. That's also important to keep in mind. There's a lot of other things maps need to do to make them good. I think a big part of that is side quests is, in my opinion, a really important thing, because you could have a really solid Easter egg quest, but if you don't have any side quests, the map can get kind of stale after a while, because people don't want to just do the same Easter egg again and again and again. I think a map like Spaceland's a great example of a map that did that very well, where there's a ton of side quests, so you can do the main quest, but sometimes you might just want to do a run through of the game where you just do a bunch of the side quests. So you might want to do the Ghosts and Skulls Easter egg, which is a whole other Easter egg quest that Spaceland has. So that's also something that's, in my opinion, really important to do, because if you have a map that doesn't have an Easter egg that everyone's going to love, well, there you go. If there's side quests, at least there's something on the map that they can get out of and they can actually enjoy. So that's important as well. But that solution of making certain maps in the game a little more easier, a little more harder, some of them more complex, some of them simpler, I don't think that's the best solution. It could work, but in general, I don't think this is the way to go. And I don't think what they're doing now with Cold War, or at least what they did last year, I don't think that's a good solution either, because they kind of just jumped to one of the extremes by making all of the Easter eggs pretty simplistic. Now, some of them are a little challenging. I think Outbreak's first Easter egg is actually kind of challenging. Like, that Legion boss fight's pretty hard, but it's really simplistic. There's no depth to those Easter eggs. There's no complexity. There's nothing that you have to really solve. It's kind of just like, go here, press this button, kill these enemies, and that's it. And some people really like that. They do. But I think Zombies needs to just be a little bit more in depth so it can be a little more replayable. And obviously, like I said, not everyone likes this complexity and depth and stuff for a certain amount of reasons. And some of them are fair reasons, which is why I'm going to propose what I'm about to propose. This idea might sound like a no-brainer, but surprisingly, I haven't really heard anyone in the community talk about this. I haven't heard anyone bring this up. It seems like everyone's solution is just like very much out there and is not really encompassing everybody. And I think it's important to try to include as many people as possible. And I think the solution would do that. So my idea is just simply 3 different difficulty settings for the Easter egg quests. That's it. As simple as that. It's not like the Final Reich where they actually make different versions of the quest where there's different steps. No, it is the exact same, but with a few touch-ups here and there. And I'm going to explain this. So first of all, I would like to say that I think the Easter eggs themselves do need some touching up. Like, I don't think there should be any steps that are so complex and tedious to the point where it's like the Revelations rock step. Like, that's not a good step. A lot of people always like to cherry pick that one step when they want to talk about Easter eggs being too complex. When I say I want the Easter eggs to be in depth and complex, I don't mean I want to have to shoot random rocks outside the map that have there's no way of you knowing that rock needs to be shot unless you're just shooting randomly outside the map. That's not what I'm talking about. I just want depth. And this goes for solving the Easter egg for the first time and also for replaying it, not just for one or the others. So sometimes people think I just want it to be like complex the first time you're trying to solve it. I want it to be hard to figure it out. No, I want it to be hard to figure it out, but I also want the replication of that to be something that you kind of have to learn over time. Like, it'll take time to learn, and I think it should be different each time you play the Easter egg. I really like Easter eggs like Origins, for example, where there is some RNG involved. I know people don't like RNG, but sometimes I think RNG, a little bit of it's good because it makes you change up how you play every game, and you change your strategy based on what's happening, rather than your strategy being the exact same. I mean, pretty much every Cold War Easter egg, your strategy is the exact same. I like Outbreak because the RNG of what world you go to on what round will change your run significantly. So it's actually one of the things I really like about Outbreak, even though Outbreak I didn't love at first, but I'm starting to like it a lot more as time goes on. But in general, the steps for all Easter eggs should make sense. They shouldn't be things like shooting random rocks inside the map, and they shouldn't be overly tedious. I think some people do exaggerate the word tedious, and they think like having to run across the map to, I don't know, shoot something and then do a ritual 4 times is tedious or something. But sometimes it's not tedious as long as it's something that's fun and engaging, and it's something that makes you actually use your brain. And I think that's the most important thing, is it makes you use your brain or do something that's involving action of some sort. So it has to be puzzle steps, action steps, no just fetch questing steps. I like I said, I just gave a good example of something I love about Origins Easter egg, but there are things about Origins Easter egg I don't like. One of those things being the constant running around the map, picking things up and placing things down. That does definitely get tedious. I will agree with that. But in terms of puzzles and action steps, give me as much as that as possible. Don't shy away from it and make them in depth. And when it comes to solving puzzles within Zombies Easter eggs, make sure everything about that puzzle can be solved within the game itself. The problem with what they did in Black Ops 3 and 4 and Black Ops 2 and some of the Easter eggs, some of them, not all of the steps, again, not all of them, just some of them, sometimes you would have to look up an external source to learn of what you need to do, even after you've already learned it, because there are things you're just not gonna memorize. Like Garad Krovi's valve step. There's no way you're not figuring that shit out without pulling up Mr. Waffle's guide, that website he made. There's no way you're figuring that out without that, right? You could do the guess and check, trial and error stuff, which I guess is how it was intended, but no, that's not good design in any way, shape, or form. So whenever I defend those Easter eggs, I'm defending the rest of the Easter egg, not those singular steps that are really bad. I don't like those steps. Even looking back at Origins, another Easter egg I do like, but the fact that you have to look up a cheat sheet for every single staff gets kind of annoying unless you somehow memorize them. The simple solution to me is not to just remove those steps completely. I think that's a dumb solution. I think the simple solution is to put those cheat sheets, put the information we get from these cheat sheets, put them in the game itself. There should be an area on Origins where you can come across maybe a little piece of paper or something, and when you read the paper, it shows you what correlates to what symbol for the ice staff, for example, so you can do that puzzle easily. That's the type of stuff they need to do. Put all this information in the game so we don't have to look up, other guides to figure this stuff out. Now, trying to do it for the first time, yes, there's going to be a lot of people who will need a guide, and I don't think that's the end of the world. I think a lot of people act like that's the end of the world. Oh my God, someone has to look up a guide. Trust me, I've played many video games in my time. There's been plenty of games I've played where I could not figure out a step for the life of me. Resident Evil 2 even, there's one step in that game I just couldn't figure it out, so I gave up and I looked up a guide. Big deal. It's not the end of the world. All that matters is that it's possible to be figured out in game. That's what's important. But sometimes, yes, there are some steps that are pretty much impossible to figure out on your own. And I think it's okay. Like I said, it's okay if you need to look it up for the first time, but you shouldn't have to look up a guide multiple times after already doing it for the first time. I think that's the important thing. And when it comes to any puzzle step where you have to kind of sit there and look at something and really focus on it that isn't revolving around the zombies should not be able to hit you. For example, the Dead of the Night Atlas puzzle step, there shouldn't be no reason why zombies are hitting you during that step. You should be able to do that without having to worry about any zombies near you. That's just no-brainer, right? You don't have to make a crawl or anything. It should just be something that when you hold X on it, you're stuck there and you can just do the puzzle without zombies hitting you. I think people would love puzzle steps so much more if this was the case, but they don't like it because when they want to do it solo, they basically can't. It's impossible. You're just getting hit by zombies all the time. And they want to do it co-op, they have to force one of their teammates to go hold a zombie, and that's not fun for the person to hold a zombie. So those steps, they just need to make it. They don't remove them. Don't get rid of them like you did in Cold War. You just got rid of them. Instead, include them. Just make it so you can do them without zombies hitting you. Simple as that. But even with all of this being said, even with this being how I think the maps should be designed from a standard perspective, there are still people who are not going to want to do Easter eggs with any puzzle steps or anything that makes them solve it in some way, shape, or form, because they want it spoon-fed to them like it is in Cold War. They do. And that's okay. I have no problem with people who want to be spoon-fed the Easter eggs, because a lot of people just want to play them for the story or just for the experience or just to get the achievement, whatever it may be. They don't really care about it being complex or hard or whatever, and that's fine. So what is the solution for them? I don't think they should dumb down the Easter egg. The standard Easter egg should not be dumbed down for them, but make a separate mode, a whole separate thing. Call it easy mode. I don't care what it's called. And when you do that, the only difference that easy mode has from the standard mode is that when they're doing the Easter egg, it tells them what to do. Simple as that. So instead of them looking up a guide online, the guide is basically there in game for them. Think of the notebook in the Final Reich, right? Basically told you what to do. Unless you're really stupid, you should know what to do by what they're telling you to do. It's kind of like, a Call of Duty campaign mission. They just tell you what to do. So let's think back to a map like, I don't know, Der Eisendrache, for example. That Easter egg in Der Eisendrache, I think, is a perfect Easter egg. There's no reason they should dumb that Easter egg down for the standard Easter egg. Keep it the same way. But for the easy mode of it, it'll literally tell you where to go for everything. So for example, when you're first getting the lightning staff, or not lightning staff, lightning bow, storm bow, whatever you want to call it, it'll literally show you on the map. It'll point towards the locations you need to shoot with your bow. So instead of you having to figure out on your own to shoot those locations, it'll literally point it out to you. It'll say, go here, go here, go here, and shoot these with your bow. And then it'll show you the exact locations of the other stuff, the electrical valve things. I don't know what you call those, the things that you have to, the orbs, you know, they have to collect souls with for zombies, and then you have to, you know, pull back your bow and then shoot it with the electric shot thing. It tells you exactly what that is. It tells you to do all these different steps, and it just does that in a straightforward manner, right? And then when you get the Easter egg itself, any part you need for the Easter egg, anything, it just tells you straight up. And this could be useful for even people who don't really like being told exactly what they're supposed to do, but they just haven't done the Easter egg in a while, so they're like, okay, I don't really feel like looking up a guide, so I'll just redo the Easter egg, but in the easy mode where it tells me exactly how to do everything. And you could even make some of the steps a little bit easier, maybe just like, I don't know, if a puzzle step's a little bit too hard in one of them, maybe just make it a little bit easier in just some algorithmic way. I have no idea. Maybe make the boss have a little bit less health in the boss fight. I don't know, whatever you want to do with that, but this would just make it so those players who don't want to try to figure things out, they don't want to spend time trying to learn an Easter egg, they don't want any of that crap, they can just do the Easter egg in this way. And it tells them what to do. It's literally just hand-holding them through it. Simple as that. And then you can have a third mode. I mentioned a third mode. You can have a third one, which is like a veteran mode, which is the same thing, but just a lot harder, right? It's the same thing as the standard one, but there's just a little bit harder. They give you less tips. There's less like character quotes and stuff like that. I don't know. Stuff like that would be kind of interesting. But then what I think a lot of people would ask is, well, what about the Easter egg hunt? What about the hunt that everyone has when the map first comes out? Well, I think the simple solution to that would be just turn off the easy mode until it's solved for the community. So once the community solves the standard quest, then they unlock the easy mode for everyone else in some like patch note update or whatever, some hotfix. I think that's the best solution. Yes, you will have the people who would prefer those types of really easy Easter eggs. They're going to have to wait a little bit longer, but I don't think that would be the end of the world. Usually these Easter eggs get solved within like 12 hours anyways, so I really don't think people would be that mad. But I think this would solve a lot of the problems. And again, this does not mean make the Easter eggs tedious. It just means make them in depth and somewhat complex. But you could have a mode alongside of it that's a lot easier because it just tells you what to do. It's as simple. You don't have to make it any different. It doesn't have to be any different in terms of its steps. It's just tells you what to do, right? It tells you, it shows you where to go. That's it. As simple as that. I don't want steps to be incredibly easy. I don't want to be handheld through the Easter egg. I want to figure it out for myself. And even when I do figure it out, I want the multiple plays through to mean something. I want my 50th time doing the Easter egg to still mean something. But in Cold War, it really doesn't. It kind of did in some of the other maps. I think Dreisendrach, I still can kind of learn how to effectively do certain steps the best way I can possibly do them. I really like Ancient Evil 9 and Alpha Omega's Easter eggs within Black Ops 4. I really do enjoy replaying those ones. Yes, I know I have to write stuff down on a piece of paper for the Alpha Omegas. Oh, it's the end of the world. Like, I don't care. But again, if you're playing with, the easy mode, they can make that easier. So maybe when they tell you the number, or when you see the number for like, I guess the code that you get, maybe the code stays on your screen in the easy mode, so you don't have to kind of like keep it in your mind or write it on a piece of paper, that sort of a thing. There's so many ways to make Easter eggs easier without actually changing the steps itself. You don't have to change the step. You don't have to change the Easter egg. You don't have to remove things. You don't have to dumb it down to the point where it's so easy that you don't want to play it more than once. You know what I mean? And that's up to opinion, obviously. I know there's people who probably love replaying Cold War's Easter eggs again and again and again on repeat, and that is completely up to you. But for me and for a lot of other people who prefer these more, complex Easter eggs, Cold War's Easter eggs just mostly weren't it. Some of them were fine. I think, like I said, the Outbreak Easter egg was pretty cool, but even then it wasn't very complex. It was just difficult, which is what made it fun, but it wasn't like complex. There was no in-depth steps that felt like they like made you think a little bit. You know what I mean? That's what I want to do. I want to think. And I didn't feel that way in these Easter eggs. So that's the point I'm trying to get across. Let me know your guys' thoughts in the comment section below. I'm very interested to hear what you all have to say. I think this is, I don't know. I hate how I feel like it's such an easy solution, but maybe it's a lot harder in execution. I have no idea. I don't know if this is something they've ever thought of, but I think there's definitely a place for it. I think they were kind of in the right direction in Black Ops 4 with custom mutations, but you couldn't even do Easter eggs and custom mutations, so it didn't really work the way I think we all hoped it would, but it is what it is. I think this is something they should definitely think about doing, because if you were to get everyone on board with these Easter eggs, everyone loving pretty much every Easter egg because it's something that's enjoyable for everyone, that would just be fantastic. That really would be fantastic. So I will see you all in my next one. Hopefully you all have a great day. Peace out.